This is the Galloway Patch review of the first 5 episodes of the English dub version of My Hero Academia. I have seen the series before, however, Jamie has not.
When we were first introduced to All Might, I was pretty sure that he was going to be the main villain and the antagonist of the series. I could very much see that being a farce, and in reality, he is the true villain. Especially how the main character idolized him. Also, I remember when I saw him, jump up and he started to bleed, I thought maybe, fighting villains is just a front, and in reality, he's perhaps just, somehow maybe taking their powers to make himself stronger, or something like that was at play. I think it was really interesting that they decided to make the majority have the powers. I thought it was really cool because you would expect it to be the other way around. You'd expect the minority to have the powers and the average person to have none. And I also thought it was really cool when we got that little insight into the main character's parents, because it was just the idea of these people aren't superheroes, they're just using their powers in day-to-day lives, and I believe that the father could breathe fire and the mother could levitate small objects, and I thought that was just a really cool insight.
What did you think of the concept of superheroes having to prioritize between just being a hero, but also being popular so that they could be successful as a hero?
Yeah, well, I remember saying to you actually at the time, I really liked how it was almost done as a sort of a parody, and that sounds a bit strange, but like the typical superhero is the ha ha ha, look at me, I'll save the day, don't worry. But in real life, you would expect them to be a lot more like Hancock, you know what I mean? Just sort of regular people who have these powers. But the fact that they are in a world where their popularity has a lot to do with their paycheck, that's why they put up these sort of faces and act a certain way. And I thought that was actually really clever. I definitely thought All Might was going to say no, just because of the long silence, and just he just turns around and goes, absolutely no way.
Into the second episode now. It opens with us finding out about All Might's secret.
When we saw the twist that All Might, he shriveled up in front of us, it was in that moment I thought, okay, this guy probably isn't a bad guy, because I thought that, again, he was this sort of idolized character who had no flaws. And then it turns out, no, wait, he has got this thing. So I felt, because they've now introduced us to this twist, I sort of wrote that very off. I was really surprised when he transformed, because when he specified about the 3-hour rule, I was pretty sure that if he was going to go into fight, that would sort of use up energy that he just didn't have. Sure. And, it'd be the whole thing. If he goes in, he fights the monster, he defeats it, he's clearly very tired by doing it. Everyone cheers and goes, "Oh my God, he's saved them, he's saved the kids," and then he collapses and he's dead, and he's like that's his character now written off.
So it's at the end of this episode that we find out that this is supposedly the story of how Midoriya becomes the world's greatest hero. Now, to the best of our knowledge, he currently doesn't have a quirk, nor did we know at that point that he was going to get a quirk. So how did you think that was gonna go forward then, considering what we knew?
I didn't think he was necessarily going to get a quirk, because when he told him that you can be a hero, it wasn't because he delivered some sweet drop kick to the sludge monster.
As you would.
It was because it was because of how he acted, and his ideals, and how heroically he acted. He didn't have wings or claws, but he kind of went in to try and help someone. That's what relighted All Might's sort of passion for being a superhero. So I didn't necessarily think that this meant that he'd get his quirk. Also, in terms of being the greatest hero of all time, it doesn't mean that he has to have amazing superpowers. It's more to do with if he sacrifices himself or does something for the greater good, that could be what is considered the greatest hero of all time.
At the beginning of the third episode, we find out that Midoriya is in fact going to inherit a quirk from All Might.
I was kind of wondering what that meant for the story. I mean, does that mean that he's now going to inherit his quirk and take away from All Might, or is it going to? Are they both going to keep the powers? I sort of just imagine that maybe he'd transfer his power and then just shrivel up, and maybe he'd kind of continue to give advice and help him out, but that would be him as a superhero done for the series. I also wondered how the power actually worked and how it was transferred. I mean, is it something magical, or does he give him some of his DNA? I wasn't quite sure.
What do you think of the training sequence?
I thought it was really good because, as much as anything, I imagine that there's going to be quite a lot of moments in the series where he's just kind of going to need some good core strength. And if we hadn't seen that and it just jumped straight into him running around, climbing on stuff, or rescuing people, and it hadn't shown us this, I might be confused as to how he's suddenly much stronger. When he gets his powers, is he going to get them all at once, or is he going to get a bit at a time? Is he? And if he does get them all at once, I can't imagine that they're just gonna say, okay, now you're insanely powerful and just overnight one of the most powerful. I imagine that there'd probably be quite a lot of having to work to sort of tame the power and make sure that he could correctly manage it. And then we found out that he transfers the power by giving him a piece of his hair. I didn't know if maybe that had something to do with his DNA. Sort of unlocking everything at once, or whether that was just a specific ability that he'd given him and he needs to transfer more. That also made me think of quite a dark concept, which was the idea that if eating one piece of his hair is going to give him a certain amount of powers, does he have to sort of consume more of him in a sort of a Tokyo Ghoul style way to continue getting his powers? But ultimately, I think I decided that was very dark, and I couldn't imagine the show going in that direction.
In the fourth episode, we have the examination, where they have to go up against several different robots to get points to get into the UA. There was the introduction of the concept of the zero pointer.
I thought there was definitely something up with the zero pointer when I first saw it. I mean, part of me thought maybe they're just kind of small, annoying robots that are just there to slow you down, so just go through them, get as many out of your way, and go for the higher pointed ones. But when we got into it and it was kind of revealed that people were just slashing through them really quickly, I thought, okay, no, that's not what's up. There's definitely something fishy going on here. When it turned out that it was revealed that the zero pointer potentially can give you points for if you act heroically, or actually,
when
the zero pointer showed
about the zero pointer itself.
Well, I think when the zero pointer showed up, I thought to myself that maybe that I didn't quite get it right. I was thinking it would be more like this thing is too powerful for everyone there. At least it would seem that way. And the person that decided to be selfless and help out their fellow classmates or potential classmates, despite the fact that they knew that they wouldn't get any points from this, would be kind of recognized for that. So I didn't quite get it right, because it was more to do with the heroic aspects of it, which is kind of what I was talking about, but it was in the same vein. I remember thinking that if the zero pointer was introduced like from the beginning, he's running around, he's late to start, he quickly runs in and he was hiding and the zero pointer went past, then I feel it would be established that this is just sort of a patrolling huge invincible guard that you just need to stay out of its way and try and focus for the ones that have points.
So for me, I think it's quite interesting that you kind of have to accept in this kind of a world that an examination this extreme would have to exist, because what they're practicing is so extreme. Because in the real world, there's just no real comparison to especially for roughly high school students to have an examination like this. So I thought it's remarkably dangerous, it seems. I remember wondering if there are any true fail-safes, considering Midoriya does almost die.
Sure.
I wonder how many lawsuits they get, how many terrible things happen. and
Yeah.
whether it's just more accepted in society or not. He uses his power to save Uraraka, and then we see the backlash for the first time of using said ability.
Well, I think I was right about that originally, thinking that maybe he'll get his power, but he has to learn to harness it. I thought that was quite cool because it introduced us to a concept of when he's in the middle of battle, it's not as easy as he might have to be more strategic when he enters battle because he thinks I could do this, however it could break my arm really badly, so I'm not necessarily going to use my powers now in case that happens. Otherwise, he'll shatter.
Which is where his core strength might come into play.
Sure.
But as for his injury, a solution to that we saw in this episode was Recovery Girl. And did you think that had the potential to cheapen the backlash of using his abilities?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of it's no longer like he has to be scared of using his powers in a safe environment because now he can train. Fuck, I broke my arm. That's all right. Let me heal you. So yes, in that sense. However, definitely no, and I don't think it did spoil it at all because they're training them to go out and fight villains, and she can't follow him around when they're out in the real world and heal him up. Also, he can't explain, well, actually, I'm slowly getting my power from All Might because it was established that was to just kind of be kept between both of them.
The examination ends, and he has no points, but we find out later on that there's a secret rescue points, which is what ends up getting him into the UA. And I was wondering if, potentially, when we saw him fail, if you thought that he would find a way to get into UA anyway, or if the series would take a different path where he'd become a hero by his own means, or just some other method.
Yeah, I definitely thought there was going to be a way he'd get in, because if nothing more than the title.
Well, there could be other academies for heroes.
Sure, but yeah, I was fairly sure that he was going to get in.
I find it interesting as well that for Uraraka, she got rescue points as well, quite significantly, and that had almost nothing to do with the beating of the 0-pointer. So I wonder how many of the other students also got rescue points. I wonder if I don't know if you remember Stomach Laser Guy at the very beginning of the examination. I wonder if he got rescue points for killing the machine that was going to attack Midoriya. It never really comes up. We were introduced to Aizawa. Thoughts?
I thought it was interesting. I almost kind of thought that, okay, so this is going to kind of be a peculiar character. But one thing I wasn't quite sure about, but I later sort of picked up about his character, is that he's also a hard tutor to be with. We learned that Bakugo had scored first. That I found very interesting. Because even though we kind of get the vibe from him and how the other heroes treated him and said, come be a sidekick for me and stuff, we got the vibe of he's talented. Obviously his ability is cool and very useful for fighting crime. So I got all of that. But the idea of all of the people that competed there, including the guy with glasses and people that have trained at the academy, and of all the different powers, the kind of the best guy out of all of them was Bakugo, and I thought that was really interesting, because I can almost imagine him being the second or third guy.
Considering his condition, how did you think Midoriya was going to handle the physical challenges?
So one thing I remember is when he was doing the running and had to make a certain time, and thinking about how well he did relative to everyone else. Because when I first was watching it, I was expecting people clearing it in about 7 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and then he clears it in about 20 to 30 seconds. But no, he managed to keep up with everyone, and that also made me think back to the training sequence and how, if they hadn't included that, then I think I would have been very skeptical about what I'd just seen. But the fact we know for the last 10 months he's been training, that makes more sense. And then that's also what I thought in episode 2, is I'm sure that there'll be certain things that he has to do in the future which he won't be using his quirk for, and this will explain why, and I think that was almost a perfect display of that.
So we find out when Aizawa stops Midoriya's ability before he's about to throw the ball, that in fact his quirk is to erase people's quirks. Thoughts?
Well, when I learned that, I thought to myself, it seems incredibly OP.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought to myself, I wonder what that would be like, because I was thinking there must be some sort of boundaries on that I don't know yet, because I'm just thinking that could potentially stop anyone unless they were their quirk. Part of what their quirk was kind of an ability to get around that. And I'm not sure what that would have to be, because at first I was almost thinking about being a kind of a ghost type person. Maybe it wouldn't work on them, but no, I think maybe it still should. I wonder what happens if, say, he looks at a particular part of the person, the big slime monster. Remember when they have him in about 7 different garbage bags at the end? What would happen if he used his quirk on just one of the bags?
Well, what effect do you think it would have on that creature, even if it was a whole creature? Do you think he has a human
that
form?
creature was a person, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a person.
Or was it, I suppose, but... yeah, okay,
because, this is a world in which people have quirks, but there's been no mention of demons or anything like that. So I'm presuming this is a human, much like the bird person we saw. Some people are just born with different phenotypical expressions than the ones we have now.
Yeah.
So do you think that sludge monster had a human form?
No, I don't. I'm pretty sure he said to Midoriya, "Oh, brilliant, you'll make a good person to hide in, sorry." So it would seem very strange that he'd want to do that when he could just go boop, and turn back into a regular person. Even if he was born like a sludge thing. It is a quirk, and if you get rid of the quirk, you have to now put him back to how he originally was. I wonder if he has a weakness, because that's kind of what I was getting at, is I don't see a reason why he shouldn't be able to use that on everyone. But if he can use that on everyone, then that just seems insanely powerful, and I wonder if there'll be something that balances that.
And for the actual ball throw?
I remember at the time thinking about him throwing the ball, and it going quite far. And he's like, "There you go. Wow, I actually did it." And he's like, damn it. Alright, fine, you can stay around, but don't slack, whatever. And it's like, oh, I wonder how he did that. And it turns out how he managed to do it is Psychic Girl was repaying him by kind of taking control of the ball and moving it further along for him. But ultimately, I did think that he is going to try and use his power, because I couldn't see him just throwing it hoping for the best anyway.
She's not psychic, she's not using telekinesis. She takes away the gravity from anything she touches. So if she did that to the ball, Aizawa would notice. So now, in a sense, he has improved his ability by thinking about different ways in which he can use it without having the full fallout of going all out with his strength.
Yeah, well, I thought it's almost like stage 1, he breaks every bone in his body. Second time he tries it, he actually does quite well. So if he's going on that sort of record, maybe the third time he tries it, he'll kind of have it down. There wasn't like a training thing, he didn't have a chance to try that out anymore. So he did very well, considering that was his only a second time, and considering what happened on the first.
Because it's not like he's controlled the power, he just sent it to a part of his body. When I say sent it to, it's like when he used it before, it broke his legs and it broke his hand because he jumped with his legs and he punched with his hand, and that broke his arm.
Right, in this, he just kind of threw.
Yeah, in this he decided to use his fingertip to push it, and so it broke his finger. But it's not as though we've seen any way for him to actually
so he did exactly what he did before. Yeah. Except he only used his finger. Right. Okay.
Moving on now to speculations for the future and how the series is going to go from here.
I think that at some point Bakugo, I think that Bakugo is going to calm down. Well, no, I think throughout the whole series he's going to be angry, but I think that there'll probably be an episode that we find out stuff about his past, and during that episode he'll maybe bond a bit with the main character, and as I say, I think they'll probably still have a bit of an icy relationship, or heated relationship, based on the opening and the sort of rivalry that sort of pitched to me. I think before that happens, that there might be a bit of a blowout in the fight, and I'd also be interested to see him standing up to him and possibly a fight between those two, which I've got a feeling that's definitely going to come up. I'm interested in learning about Bakugo's backstory, because I think there's probably a reason that he's so uptight. I don't think that's just for no reason. I think that we'll see something about his past, and I'm interested to see what that is. I'm also interested by the opening of two characters we haven't seen yet. One is a man with white hair and I think bandages around his face, and the other is a guy who I think we dubbed the Shadow Bartender. I don't know if he is a bartender. Probably not. Almost definitely not. But is sort of dressed like one and has a sort of a shadow face. And I'm guessing that both of them are villains. Maybe not, but I'm interested to see how they come into it. I'm interested to see if we find anything else about any of the other tutors, because so far we've only seen him as a tutor.
Mm-hmm.
As well as, in fact, just a small prediction based on everything they were doing in the baseball field. I've got a feeling that a baseball game is going to make its way in somehow.